Welcome to your deep dive. Ready to tackle a topic that's always got folks talking, but often in hushed tones like it's some kind of taboo. I'm talking about obesity.
Yeah.
But get this, we're not here to shame or blame. We're diving into the why behind weight gain. And let me tell you, it's probably not what you think. We're cracking open the work of Dr. Jason Fung, a leading expert who throws that old calories in, calories out idea right out the window.
What's really interesting here is that Dr. Fung isn't just telling us to eat less and move more. He goes deeper, way deeper, showing us how hormones, those tiny messengers in our bodies, are really calling the shots when it comes to our weight.
Okay, so no more calorie counting then. Phew, that's a relief. Let's be honest, who's got time to track every single bite? But hormones, that's a whole other thing, isn't it? I'm all ears, but honestly, I'm a bit lost. Where do we even begin to untangle all that?
Dr. Fung calls it the calorie deception, this idea that a calorie is just a calorie no matter where it comes from. He argues that our bodies handle a calorie of white bread way differently than, say, a calorie of broccoli.
Really, what's the difference? They're both just calories, right?
Right, they are, but the key difference is in how they make our hormones react, especially this one called insulin.
Insulin, right, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
It always seems to be getting a bad rap, but I have to admit, I'm not exactly sure what it actually does.
Well, you can think of insulin like it's a master controller. It's like a key that unlocks our cells and lets glucose, the energy we get from food, in. Now, picture this. When we eat something like that white bread you mentioned, or maybe a sugary soda, our blood sugar shoots up, our bodies kind of freak out, like, whoa, too much sugar, and then bam, they release this big surge of insulin to try to deal with all that glucose.
Okay, I think I'm following so far.
Yeah.
But how does that lead to weight gain?
Here's the thing. Our bodies can only use so much glucose all at once. Anything left over. Well, our clever bodies turn it into fat. And guess who's there to help store that fat away? You got it. Insulin. It's like the ultimate saver, making sure nothing goes to waste, even if it means our waistlines. Well, you get the picture.
Wait a minute. You're saying my morning bagel habit is basically sending my body into fat storage overdrive.
You're catching on. Think about it. That bagel, loaded with refined carbs, what's it going to do? Send your blood sugar soaring. And then comes that insulin surge we were talking about. Now let's compare that to, say, eggs and avocado for breakfast. Same calories, totally different story when it comes to your hormones.
Hold on. So what's happening differently in my body with the eggs and avocado compared to my usual bagel?
Good question. See, the eggs and avocado, packed with protein and healthy fats, they cause a much slower, more gradual rise in blood sugar. It's like a leisurely stroll for your insulin instead of a wild goose chase. Less insulin means less fat storage, and chances are you'll stay feeling full and satisfied for longer. No more mid-morning cravings.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture here, but something's been bugging me. If it's all about these hormones, then what about genetics? I mean, doesn't our DNA play a role in all this weight gain stuff too?
Oh, absolutely. Genetics definitely have a part to play in this whole thing. In fact, Dr. Fung talks about studies they did with identical twins. And get this, even when the twins were raised separately, like totally different lifestyles and all, they often ended up at pretty much the same weight.
You're kidding. So you're telling me that even if I blame my weakness for donuts on my grandpa, there's a chance science might actually back me up on that.
There's a good chance of it. But here's the thing that really got me thinking. Our genes, they don't change all that fast, right? But obesity rates, they've gone through the roof in just the last few decades. So something else has to be going on here besides just our genes, right?
That's true. It's not like we're all suddenly sprouting donut-loving genes overnight.
Right.
So Dr. Fung thinks it's more about the types of food we're surrounded by, that it's the real culprit, right?
Exactly. He points to some pretty big changes in the way we eat, especially starting back in the 70s. Remember all those low-fat, high-carb diets everyone was going crazy for? Turns out those might have accidentally made the whole obesity problem even worse.
Wait, seriously? You got to explain that one, because I grew up with those fat-free cookies, thought they were doing me some kind of favor.
It does seem kind of backwards, doesn't it? But think about it. When they took out all the fat, those processed foods, well, they had to add a whole lot of something else to make them taste good, right? And what did they use? Yep, sugar. And sugar, like we talked about, what's it going to do? It's going to spike those insulin levels and send you straight into fat storage mode.
Wow. Talk about a nutritional bait and switch. But hold on, Dr. Fun says it's not just what we're eating that's the problem, it's also how often we're eating, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
We've become a society of snackers, constantly nibbling on something, and that means our insulin levels are always up, never really giving our bodies a chance to use those fat stores for energy. And that, my friend, is where Dr. Fung's work on intermittent fasting comes into play.
Okay, intermittent fasting, yeah, it's everywhere these days. But I got to be honest, the idea of just like not eating, it always made me think of those crash diets and just being hungry all the time.
I hear, yeah, the word fasting does sound kind of intense, right? But what Dr. Fung talks about, it's not about starving yourself. It's more like working with your body's natural rhythms, going back and forth between times of eating and not eating, kind of like our ancestors used to do.
So instead of choking down breakfast when I'm not even hungry, which is like
Yeah.
what everyone always says you're supposed to do, I could actually give my body a break and let it tap into that stored up fat for fuel.
Exactly. And here's the thing about intermittent fasting that I find so cool. It's not just about losing weight, although that's definitely a nice bonus for a lot of people. There's more and more research coming out showing how it can help with things like repairing your cells, reducing inflammation, even protecting you from chronic diseases down the line.
Hold up, repairing cells. Are we talking about that autophagy thing I keep hearing about?
You got it. Autophagy, it basically means self-eating, which sounds kind of freaky, but it's actually a good thing. It's like your body's own personal recycling system. When you fast, it's like you're giving your cells the signal to go into cleanup mode, breaking down and recycling all the damaged parts, which can really help your cells function better and make you healthier overall.
Wow, so while I'm sipping my morning coffee during my fasting window, my body's basically doing a deep clean on a cellular level.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. But what about those new weight loss medications I keep seeing ads for, like Ozempic? Where do those fit into this whole hormone puzzle we're talking about?
Ah, that's a great question and a perfect segue. Ozempic and some others in the same family, they're called GLP-1 agonists. They're definitely shaking things up. And guess what? They work on hormones, just like intermittent fasting.
Okay, you're speaking my language now. Break it down for me.
Uh-huh.
What are GLP-1 agonists and how do they do their thing?
GLP-1, it stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. It's this hormone that we naturally produce in our gut, and it's got a big job regulating our appetite and making sure our blood sugar stays balanced. Now, Ozempic, it basically mimics the effects of GLP-1, kind of like an imposter, but in a good way.
So it's like tricking your body into thinking it's full, even when it's not, so you naturally eat less. Is that it?
You got it.
Hmm.
By flipping the same switches as natural GLP-1, these medications slow down your digestion, help your body make more insulin when it needs it, and most importantly, they tell your brain, hey, you're good, you're satisfied. No more of those annoying cravings.
That's incredible. It seems like this whole thing really comes down to understanding how hormones work. Once you've got that figured out, finding ways to lose weight and keep it off, whether it's through lifestyle changes like intermittent fasting or with help from medications, it all starts making a lot more sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about figuring out what works best for your own body and your lifestyle. But you're right, when we start to understand that hormones are at the heart of all of this, well, it's like a light bulb moment, isn't it? We're on the right track.
It's amazing when you think about it, like we've unlocked some secret code.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes you wonder, if working with our hormones is so effective, why isn't everyone doing this? Why are we still stuck with those crazy diets that never seem to work for very long?
Well, it's a really good question, and it's complicated. I think part of it is that somewhere along the line, we were taught to be afraid of being hungry. Like we're always supposed to eat 6 small meals a day or never skip breakfast or whatever.
Oh, tell me about it. I remember when I first thought about skipping breakfast, I felt like I was breaking some cardinal rule.
Right. And then you've got the whole food industry, right? They're not helping, are they? They make all these products that are designed to be super addictive to keep us craving more and more. It's like a vicious cycle.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like we've totally forgotten how to listen to our own bodies, how to tell when we're actually hungry and when we've had enough.
Exactly. And that's something that Dr. Fung talks about a lot in his work, how important it is to get back in touch with those natural signals our bodies send us. It's not about never feeling hungry. It's about recognizing the difference between real physical hunger and just wanting to eat because we're bored or stressed or whatever.
That makes a lot of sense.
Uh,
But changing the way we think about food, breaking all those old habits, it's got to be tough.
It definitely takes time and effort, that's for sure. But it's not about deprivation. One thing Dr. Fung points out is that once you break free from that constant cycle of eating, you actually start to enjoy food more, appreciate it on a whole new level. You're more mindful, more in tune with what your body really needs.
I love that. And speaking of amazing things, that brings us to one of the most hopeful aspects of Dr. Fung's work, his research on reversing type 2 diabetes. And I don't just mean managing it. I mean actually putting it into remission. How is that even possible?
It is pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? And it all goes back to what we've been talking about, the power of insulin. See, with type 2 diabetes, what often happens is our bodies start to become resistant to insulin. Our cells stop responding to it properly, which means our blood sugar stays too high.
So our bodies try to compensate by producing even more insulin, but it's like, it's not really working, right?
Exactly. And all that extra glucose floating around in our blood, well, it can lead to a whole bunch of other health problems down the line. But here's the thing. Dr. Fung's research, along with a lot of other studies, shows that by lowering those insulin levels, we can actually improve our insulin sensitivity. We can help our body start regulating blood sugar more effectively again.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we lower those insulin levels? By changing our diet, right?
You got it. And it's not about some crazy restrictive diet either. Dr. Fung has had some incredible success with his patients by combining a low carbohydrate diet with intermittent fasting, both of which naturally help keep those insulin levels in check.
Wow, that's amazing. It means that people with type 2 diabetes, they're not just stuck with their diagnosis, right? There are things they can do to take control of their health.
Exactly. And the really exciting thing is that it goes beyond just diabetes. By addressing the root cause, which is often this underlying metabolic issue, we might be able to prevent or even improve a whole range of chronic diseases.
You wanted a deep dive. Well, there you have it. We've busted those calorie myths wide open, explored the incredible world of hormones, even touched on the possibility of reversing chronic diseases. Remember, knowledge is power. What will you do with this newfound understanding of your own amazing body? This is your host, signing off. Until next time, happy exploring.